Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us in the latest Boutique Hotel News webinar in partnership with Guestline today, where we're going to be talking about leveraging new distribution channels. If this is the first time that you have joined one of our webinars, my name's Eloise. I'm your host for today and also the editor of Boutique Hotel News, and we're an online multimedia trade publication covering the global boutique, lifestyle and luxury hotel industry. As I mentioned, today's webinar is in partnership with hospitality software platform Guestline, and we do have a very short video to play for you today. And further details about Guestline have been popped into the chat if you would like to learn more. So let's meet our panelists, and I'm going to segue straight on into Chris, who can perhaps shed a bit more light as to who Guestline are and what Chris does with the company. So over to you, Chris.
Hello. So, thanks for the introduction. My name's Chris Jones. I'm part of the product management team here at Guestline. Guestline, traditionally, we've been known for our property management system and our cloud-based property management system. Over the course of the years, we've introduced more functionality. So in terms of channel manager, we were one of the first cloud-based PMSs to introduce an embedded channel manager solution and also a payments engine. So we've kind of looked at ourselves as more of a platform. I've been with Guestline for around 10 years now, but working with Guestline for a lot longer than that. And part of the day-to-day is basically, for me, is looking for opportunities and pain points that our customers have, and really looking how we can solve those pains and problems the customers have, especially around guest experience and guest handling and distribution with technology. So whether that be us creating the technology or us looking for partners, for instance, Room Price Genie, to solve those problems our customers may be having.
Super, thank you, Chris. Natalie, over to you, please.
Yes, hello, I'm Natalie, Director of Revenue Management Services at Room Price Genie. And basically, Room Price Genie is a revenue management system. We are helping hoteliers all around the world. So far, it's over 2,000. And my main role there is to consult them and to help them basically advise them how they can maximize their revenue management or the revenue basically with us to use. And we're working with different partners together, and one of them is Guestline.
Super, thank you, Natalie. And last but by no means least, Nick, over to you.
Thank you, Eloise. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Willison. I'm the founder and managing director of Enigma RM, a new hotel revenue management consultancy based here in London. We offer a wide range of hotel revenue management services, everything from audits, distribution services, outsourced revenue management and support. And prior to my current role, I was providing revenue management consulting services for Luxury Hotel Partners, which is a sister company of small luxury hotels of the world.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you to all. And I will just share very quickly that Sarah Buchanan from Lusker London, who was supposed to join us, unfortunately has had an emergency. So she does send her sincere apologies. But I'll flag here that all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers have been popped into the chats. I do encourage you all to connect and carry on that conversation long after today's webinar has finished. So in terms of format, we're going to spend around 45 minutes today chatting with our speakers, followed by some time to take any questions from our audience members. So if you do have any burning questions, please submit these using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. I will either ask those questions dependent on if we're talking about that topic there and then, or we will save some time just at the end to go through all those questions. And as a reminder, this session is being recorded and every registrant will receive a copy of that recording by Wednesday. So in terms of context, I always like to share some background to today's conversation. And these are headlines that I've sourced from online. And we can see that in the US, CBRE forecasted RevPAR to reach its peak in the third quarter this year, driven by the influx of inbound international travellers during the busy summer season. And a recent report which looked at global travel trends and particularly bookings supports this, showing a 24% increase in international traveller bookings to the US, with a longer lead time and also longer length of stay compared to 2023. And in the UK, the lead time for reservations at UK hotels this summer is actually 10 days longer than the Northern Hemisphere average. It's around 150 days, and international guests are set to make up 41% of the country's arrivals, and that's up from 32% in 2023. So there is a big increase in international travel forecasted or already on the books, and this does underline the importance of an omni-channel marketing and distribution strategy so that you are capturing all that demand. And I took a stat from an article here, the far right article from Forbes. This stat shows that while 90% of travel customers research online, only 82% will end up making their bookings via those same digital channels. So it is super important that you are leveraging an omni-channel strategy here. And on the next slide, in a distribution paper, white paper actually released by SHR Group, which Guestline's parent company, the Access Group, has recently acquired. The team outlines some of the best practices from optimal channel mix, explores how personalization can actually help to drive conversions, and also highlights the impact of AI on hotel distribution. And most of these topics we are going to be covering in today's conversation. We're going to be looking at channel management, digital marketing and pricing, as well as data management and technical integrations. So without further ado, let's talk about leveraging new distribution channels. And I would like to kick off with a question to Natalie. We saw just a moment ago from the context slide that there is a lot of international travel forecasted. What I'm keen to understand is, can you share some examples of how hoteliers can actually tailor their distribution for different regions and different travelers?
Yes. So basically, first of all, it's really important, I think, to understand as well that the shift is really here to everything to online. So we can see that way more people are researching everything online and booking then as well online, and not as much offline anymore. And then as well to see in which region, as we're thinking worldwide, basically, which online channels are in most demand. So if we look, for example, in the Europe market, you have in the OTAs, Booking.com is the biggest player. Then if you look in the US market, it's more through Expedia. If you look in Asia, it will be Ctrip, for example. And it's not just important to know in which market is the biggest player with online travel agents, but as well to know your audience and which guest basically books with you. So if we take, for example, in Germany, even like cities like Munich, Hamburg, Berlin, or in London, you do have in the summer periods a big audience of Middle Eastern guests. They're coming over, they're having all the big suites. So it's very important to identify what kind of guest books in which periods and what they're booking. So you can target directly into this segment and area with your offering as well. So you would target more your suites because you know they're booking more their suites. You would go through packages, amenities, and all that in order to make most out of it. And as well, to look like where your audience is coming. As you said as well, it's very international. So even if you may be in Europe, but you do have a lot of US market coming to you, it will be very important to target then their source and not just only the source what you have in Europe itself. And for the US market, very important as well is, for example, mobile-friendly booking engines. So you would like to go more mobile-friendly in that cases. Many of them book on the go, so it's very important you have a very great marketing perspective in that case, and then you would target more over the mobile, for example. And yeah, that's how you would basically target it out first.
There's that's actually really interesting, Natalie. Thank you. In terms of for a hotelier to be able to research this themselves, would this be looking online? Would they be looking back through historical data? Is this looking at technology partnerships who can, you know, share their data sets? How can a hotelier actually go about putting this into place?
The best source here is how that you can analyze all your data. It is important to analyze your historic data in this cases as well over the PMS, because you have all reservations in your PMS basically saved. So you just need a tool, even like a revenue management tool, but you need a tool basically where you can analyze this data and see exactly what shifts in the market you get from. So you can analyze where the guests coming from, what are the booking, even with yield management. So basically for your specific room categories, where you can push more in which channels as well then afterwards. And you can forecast as well your costs with the different distribution channels, because you would know like, okay, you have different commission schemes with different OTAs. What do you expect for next year's on commission and on costs to pay itself? Yeah, so you would definitely take the PMS as your main source and then analyze in different segments. So where the guests coming from, when are they coming, and when is the booking period? So not only when they're staying with you, so when they start booking with you for this kind of period, because you need to start to target them early, basically.
It seems like there is so much data available. Well, we're going to be talking later on about data management. And I've heard it mentioned before that sometimes it can be so overwhelming trying to capture, record, analyze so many data streams that it can at times become counterproductive. It can actually stall further activity. And I'm just on that note, as we're talking about identifying the right channel, how do you then optimize that channel for specific traveler segments? Does anybody have any advice at this moment on this topic? Let's move on, and let's look at we've identified the right channels. So let's say you're EU, you're looking at booking.com or US, Expedia, etc., etc. But then how do you connect to these different channels? And I want to bring Nick into the conversation here to just talk about the pain points and the challenges that some hoteliers might face when they're looking at actually integrating and connecting via different channels.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, ultimately, you know, especially in this day and age, you know, hoteliers are operating in a very fast-paced online environment. So that does make it difficult for many of us. But I would say especially people, you know, who don't have any distribution or revenue management experience to keep up with the latest developments in the field, and also take advantage of new opportunities available to their properties. So I think that's kind of the first main one. And then I think what a lot of people don't realize as well, there's no you know, uniform approach to optimize distribution. So what works on one channel or in one region may not necessarily work on another. And this makes it very hard for hotels to determine, a definite answer to what is successful or what is the most cost-effective approach when distributing their rooms. And another challenge, which hoteliers face is, working in hotels, we're expected to do everything at once. To drive revenue, hotels need to attract as many customers as possible. To increase profits, they need to do this for the lowest price possible as well. And then, in order to stand out from the crowd and be visible everywhere, travelers are searching for accommodation. So at the same time, your hotel must provide exemplary service, fostering a positive workplace environment. So if you fall behind on one, then the other areas will suffer. And another reason, I think, is, hotels must recognize the growing market of online booking channels. So obviously the OTAs still continue to dominate online sales, but at the same time, the distribution space is getting even more crowded. So you have, the likes of Meta Search with TripAdvisor and Google. And despite all this, hotels have to prioritize direct bookings through their own website, while also being aware of offline channels, such as by the phone or via walk-in, and of course, the relevant GDS network. So, a large and constant online presence is paramount, as is understanding true distribution costs. And I think the last point, it just has to do with, today's advancing technology and the distribution landscape. So, there's an increased sophistication, complexity of technology systems that are used to drive hotel distribution and online marketing, specifically related to connectivity, cross-device and customization features. So, I think, when it comes to distribution connectivity in itself, traditionally hotels had to be, part of a management company or a rep company, or they had to be a part of a hotel chain. One of the things we do at Enigma RM is to fully empower independent hotels and to get them set up on all distribution channels. So that includes, GDS, OTA, direct on their website. And apart from providing them with the connectivity, we also go a couple steps further, and we actually manage their distribution for them, as well as optimize each segment. So I hope that has answered your question.
That's great. No, thank you, Nick. I was going to bring Natalie back in here because it's prompted a question around which channels do perform the best. We've just heard OTAs, meta search, direct, offline, if you wanted to use an offline channel. Do you have any insight as to which of those buckets typically perform well for hotels?
Yes, so basically at this stage, it's still the OTAs. So they're performing definitely the best, because we need to see as well, the OTAs, they're putting themselves millions into their own marketing and positioning, and they're known worldwide. And then if you not a corporate, like a group, like a huge chain of hotels, it's very hard to stand out of your competition, basically by your own presence or only your own website. So the OTAs are definitely still the biggest players, but here we can see how important online presence is actually with your own website, with Google Ads, with searching tools that they can find yourself, even to have always the best offer on your own website in order to shift at least a bit more the balance into your direct booking sections. And it's very important as well to have them parity through all the other distribution channels, but the best price level than on your own website, and making you, at least in that case, a bit more available or attractive to book direct, basically. And as you do have so many different online distribution channels, what Nick just mentioned, even with meta search, TripAdvisor is coming in there as well, GDS and OTAs itself, and your own website. It's as well important to know which one are important for you, because each channel comes with your own costs as well. So if you would like to have GDS, you need to have the hotel as well for a GDS. So if you don't have enough rooms, enough corporate, enough travel agent direct booking for GDS, it might be not the best source. You might concentrate and put your sources then into the which one performing better for you in that cases. But yeah, it's definitely OTAs still which are dominating the market here.
Thanks, Natalie. Chris, let's bring you in here. Nick mentioned on the tech side around sort of advancements, trying to stay on top of it, understanding new functionalities, capabilities. How well integrated are current hotel systems with distribution platforms?
Oh, okay. So this is a big subject. So I think the first thing I'd mention here is we've got to look at this two ways. So we mention quite often partnerships, integrations, interfaces, embedded systems, etc. And I think it's important to note that realistically, these are all trying to do the same thing. If you consider what the hotel are trying to achieve, it's to take their product or their inventory that they keep on their books, expose it to the outside world, into their, let's say, their best audience. So get it out in front of the right audience and then get those reservations flowing back in. But there's so many complicated ways of doing that. And as we've got Natalie on the call, obviously, and Nick with his expertise, we know that in between the technology, there's a lot of human interactions. So the machines aren't the experts here. So you need smart people. So the hardest integrations we find are the integrations that are both intuitive and convenient and actually make a difference to what you're trying to achieve. So if your objective is to just fill rooms, integrations can be quite simple. We can integrate with OTAs quite quickly, and you can fill rooms by sending minimal information out. And as Natalie says, the OTA spend a huge amount of money on advertising to grab those guests. They're quite agnostic. They're not loyal to you as a brand, but they will make sure that you fill the rooms. But if you're trying to target, let's say, lower cost acquisitions, trying to spend less on getting that guest in, trying to raise the TrevPAR and get that guest to actually spend more, then the technical integrations and the amount of other products that you may be using require a little bit more technology. So let's say, for instance, you're using a system to try and understand through a CRM system, who are your highest performing guests, where could you go and buy those guests online or attract those guests online, and what is going to be the real cost of that? There's other systems that you need to integrate with, and some of those integrations now are getting really smart. So as PMS vendor, we have to think outside of the box of just sending rates and availability out anymore. There's other things that partners need, such as information on hotel length of stay, maximum occupancy per room, and then products can use fantastic tools like AI to start being a lot more predictive and help you go and automatically make choices that you might not have made as a human being. And that level of integration really changes. But realistically, to answer the question, I would say how well integrated, it's getting better, but it's also getting harder because more and more systems are cropping up all the time. There's more of the partners such as OTAs on one side of this, who are all demanding more availability information, more rate information about the hotel itself so that they can sell better for their own motives. But then you've got other tools like the BI tools, the intelligence tools, the insights platforms, the RMS systems, etc., who are trying to help the hoteliers make better decisions about which OTAs to place their bets with. So we have quite a complicated task from our point of view, because really we're trying to please a lot of parties and help the hotelier make less technical choices. And I think that's our role as tech vendors in the industry, is to try and make the technology almost an obfuscation of what the hotelier is trying to do. Take away those integration complications and try and make it easy and convenient. So, I mean, some of the obvious things would be accuracy and real-time data flow. So making sure that if a rate changes in one vendor, all the vendors see it. If availability changes over here because someone's just booked a room at the hotel, that changes and broadcasts online. So I think the basics are still the same, but it's just all of those new little things that we're trying to think of to make this much easier, better, and more cost effective for the hotelier is what the real work is, I think.
I want to pick your brains a bit more, Chris, head of product. I want to understand exactly how technology can help to streamline that process to actually help simplify a hotel's distribution across multiple channels, because there's clearly a lot. It's quite a complex task to back of house, trying to understand and analyze which channel to be on, but then once you're on multiple channels, keeping on top of it all. So how can tech help?
So I suppose again it's that partnerships piece where we look at what other products are available in the industry and how well connected they are. So for us at Guestline, we can't do everything for the customer inside the PMS. So products like a solid channel manager or a solid rate management system not only show you and expose to you your channels and what's available and which outlets you can sell on, but actually it's monitoring performance of those channels. And I think right at the start of the conversation, you mentioned omnichannel. So quite often when I'm hearing a conversation around distribution, we're always hearing about the distribution channels or the online channels. But if we're going to talk omnichannel, you've also got word of mouth, you've got walk-in reservations, you've got CRS-based reservations that might be taking place over the telephone. By mixing all of those together and helping expose that data, and I think that the word data is going to become a common theme throughout this talk today, by helping to surface more of that data from more of those channels and have that aggregated in a single central place, you can see your channel performance, you can see which channels or which outlets are costing you the most, you can see which are the most cost effective, and you can see where your most lucrative guests come from. But that's not easy. I think where Nick probably comes in his role is helping hoteliers understand all that technology and all the options that they've got available, and help decipher and synthesize that information into something that makes a decision that can actually raise your expectations of what your next quarter's results would be. So I think I mentioned earlier, although we can do all these wonderful things with tech, there's still a great demand for expertise in the industry to actually make sense and decipher a lot of this stuff. And I'm sure Natalie will tell us some amazing things about how AI can help the hoteliers make decisions. And lots of these products can actually make the decisions there instantaneously for you. But the real magic still comes from having people helping understand what those data points and numbers mean and making decisions based on them.
Thanks, Chris. I'm just going to send a quick reminder to our audience members that if you do have any questions for our panelists, please do submit these using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screens. As we were just talking about integration, Natalie, I want to learn from yourself how a direct revenue management system integration with a property management system can actually empower hotels to make those data-driven decisions that Chris was just talking about.
Yes, so data is here really the key word actually, because what we do, we're getting all the data what we need from the PMS basically, and obviously market factors and everything onto that, and then we visualize it for the guests, for the clients, for our hoteliers. So it's not just only for having the right price at the right time to sell your rooms, it's as well what do you do out of the information what you receive from us as well. So we do break it down then as well with this integration to see what's your booking window, where are the guests are booking from, which guests spend it the most, which rooms are the most selling room, which didn't perform well. So you can target all these little things basically better in order to sell more where you need to sell, because even revenue management itself is all about having the right price at the right time for the right product. And at the end, it's as well to know your audience basically. So you should know what you're selling for who you want to sell it. And with the data, what you get from a PMS itself, what you can see historically, who's booking or the booking trends, what you're getting at the moment in, you can make then your decisions who you want to target and when you should target it with what kind of packages even, let's say. And it's not even just about revenue management and integrations into PMS. It is even going out into different departments of a hotel. So it's a close working together with the sales team, the marketing team, in order to produce something at the end, with the reservations team as well, or even on the reception team to upsell if you need to upsell people. It's all like the little things what you need to do in order to have like, it's like a snowball effect. So you have a lot of things with your data, what you have first, and then you grow basically in order to make the most out of it. And for that, you do need data, and you need to analyze this data, and you need to make sure you know how to use the data, what you get out of it.
Thanks, Natalie. Nick, as we're talking about revenue management strategies, what are some of the best practices that hoteliers can implement to make sure that their revenue management remains profitable across these multiple sites?
Sure. So I think the first is, business mix optimization. So it really is, understanding the different traveler segments who book at your property, which allows you to, diversify your business mix and optimize your distribution strategy. With regards to data, it's very important to establish proper tracking and measurement tactics. And it's also crucial that the data is accurate and relevant. So that's very important. And then the third one, I think is just a regular evaluation of ROI across all channels and market segments. So by constantly doing that on a regular basis, you then obviously can identify which segments aren't performing, which ones are, and then you're able to focus on your strengths, improve your weaknesses.
How often do you think you should be doing that sort of self-audit? And you mentioned regularly, but is this a daily, weekly, monthly?
So yeah, I would say, in terms of business mix optimization, if you can, once a day is great. Obviously, as hoteliers, there are days where we have to juggle quite a lot, and we have to prioritize. So there may be times where you can't do it as often as you should, but definitely should be done on a regular basis. If you are kind of evaluating the ROI across different market segments, you may want to do that. Obviously, that doesn't need to really be done on a daily basis. You may do that on a monthly basis, especially when it comes to kind of business review meeting time. You may want to look back on that. Yeah, so it really depends.
And staying with you, Nick, there's clearly, it's not just making sure that you're on the right channels and targeting the right customers, but you've got to look at descriptions, availability, rate parity. How can one, meaning hotelier, how can a hotelier ensure that these are kept up to date across all the relevant booking channels?
Sure. So I think, you have to be disciplined. And, for example, there's the daily monitoring, of rate parity, which is very important. And, daily audit of your rates and availability across all the different channels. Then you also get into regular maintenance of rate codes where, you need to extend pricing seasons, review of restrictions, and then certain tasks aren't done as frequently. If you kind of look at the whole corporate and consortia annual RFP process, usually that's once a year. So yeah, I think each area will have a different kind of time frame as to when it needs to be done. But yeah, I think you just constantly need to keep on top of it. And I also think, nowadays, it's very important to embrace and utilize technology. There are a lot of fantastic system providers out there. And I think, it's very important to use them to your advantage.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to talk quickly about online presence and being able to make sure that you are maximizing your online presence. And I'm going to ask this to both Nick and Natalie, and Chris, of course, if you want to jump in, you're more than welcome to. But when we are looking at new platforms and looking to make sure that we are increasing our visibility in order to attract new bookings and drive those conversions, what would you advise? Nick, let's start with yourself, and Natalie will jump over to you.
Sure. Yeah. So when looking at new platforms, a big one I think nowadays is the use of social media. So, if you, especially Instagram, you really can showcase your property to the world, with amazing videos and really good image content. And then guests can actually book directly on your website with a link from Instagram to your web page. So I think, yeah, that's definitely a big one nowadays. Instagram is also really good when it comes to advertising. So you can also run various advertising campaigns with different intentions. You can run some to boost your followers. You can run others to increase visits to your website and hopefully drive conversion. And then, yeah, I think, using other online booking channels to increase sales. So, such as your OTAs, meta search sites as well, which would be, likes of TripAdvisor and Google. And there's also a lot you can do with Google in terms of online advertising with Google Ads. But the last one I would say as well is just, ensuring that your channel manager and booking engine are also mobile compatible. Working as a consultant, we work with many different systems, very wide range of PMS systems, revenue management systems, channel managers. So, there can also be challenges there, depending on, what each system is capable of offering.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Nick. Anything you'd like to add, Natalie?
Yes, I think Nick is here 100% right. And visibility is definitely with great pictures and putting yourself into this field, basically, because everyone is looking first at the pictures. And it's very important to go with the time. As we can see, everything goes more online, more, it's very fast paced, everything. So Instagram and everything will definitely come into place in that as well. And if you're on the OTAs, the new kid on the block, then it's definitely have the best pictures, the best description, and reviews. So you need to have the best reviews, otherwise you will be filtered out. Everyone is using filters when they're searching their accommodation, and you need to stand on top of the reviews as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Natalie.
I just have one tiny thing, because I think
course.
it's an exciting one. It's easy to do relatively, is be consistent. So if you think about the guest, their mission is to go online in this massive marketplace. They don't know where to look. They don't know how to look. And pretty much if you're consistent across all the channels that you broadcast on, your guests might find different and better ways to book with the same, let's say the same packages, but actually more cost effectively for the hotel. And the example I'll give, both Nick and Natalie have said the same things, but if you make sure that your images, descriptions, etc. are perfect, we see a lot of hotels doing this and focusing on the OTAs specifically because they're the biggest channels. But actually, quite a lot of guests will go from the OTAs and take a look around the internet, maybe social channels, quick web searches, etc. If they can find that same product direct, or they can get to the direct site and make a purchase there and commit to that brand, not only is that more cost effective for the hotel, and it's a nirvana point for the hotel, getting a direct booking in for lots and lots of reasons, but actually that's going to save them a lot of money. And that's just through consistency. So make sure, if you're going to give the latest pictures to the OTAs, make sure they're on your own website and your own booking engine. Make sure your data is consistent between all the channels. And that does help a lot.
Thank you. Nick mentioned something a moment ago about making sure that channels speak to each other, making sure that what they offer can actually work with other partners, and having that sort of free flow of data across different channels, which brings me on to Chris and some advice in terms of how can hoteliers manage that vast amount of data that is being generated across all these various distribution channels in order to actually optimize them across all the various different systems that one hotel might use.
Okay, so I think one of the primary things here is understanding with hoteliers that they do need a plan. So we see hoteliers who just rely on the tech, and I would call it, it's a horrible term, but spray and pray, just broadcast to as many channels as possible and just hope something happens. It sounds like a naive thing to do, a potentially naive thing to do, but we have seen it happen. It's not very effective. But if you take the data and you use the data, so you do some segmentation studies and you place the data into buckets and you make sure that you're analyzing it correctly, that can be a great way to use that incoming reservation data to your benefit. And quite a lot of hotels, especially smaller independents, don't see the benefit in that until the first time they try it. I think the second thing is choosing partners and partner technology that can help you aggregate that data. So channel managers, for instance, or choosing a good BI tool to look at that incoming data and look at lead times, look at specific channels that are yielding well for you, look at fluctuations in customer behavior, searches for particular dates, etc. All of that's much easier if you're taking that data, aggregating it, and finding a great tool to help you visualize it. And I think really, probably the third, maybe the most important for me, is making sure you can actually get the understanding that that data isn't just there to give you pretty numbers and reports at the end of every quarter and show you that you're doing something well once every month. This should be done almost real time. It should be done something that you keep an eye on a daily basis. Trends don't wait for a quarter. Trends can happen at any time. So really making sure you got that data, you're keeping a view on it. Machine learning, AI tools can start to help with that, and other dashboarding tools can really help you. But I think as hoteliers, keeping an eye on the data, understanding the data, and trying to see actually how it can form part of your plan, whether that's increase occupancy, increase TrevPAR, break into new segments, etc., or advertise, make sure that you're getting the best out of your marketing budget. All of those things are goals that you can associate with data to give you the actual proof points on. So yeah, very important that those goals are set, and then find the right tools to help you understand the data.
Could you elaborate on the use of those tools, the analytical tools, in terms of actual utilization? So what should hoteliers be tracking? Do you have any insight in terms of metrics, and how can they actually use these tools to sharpen overall distribution and revenue strategies?
Yeah, I think some of them are really simple actually, and maybe Nick or Natalie, you've also got some ideas on this. But some of the simplest things that hoteliers aren't doing are the ones that make a difference. So let's say, for instance, you are running marketing campaigns, keeping an eye on that distribution data to see actually, does that campaign that I'm running affect my direct business? Can I then look at that direct business going up through the result of that campaign, take the cost of that campaign and compare it to my OTA commission costs? Could I then get more confident at giving less reliance on those OTAs and pushing more into my marketing campaigns to gain the direct business? So effectively balancing your channels. That's something that sounds really, really complicated, but I would wager that any hotel who's got a marketing agency and running marketing campaigns will already have most of that data in front of them. But it's just adding those two points together and correlating them. And I think that could be the same for most of what we call the distribution mix, is more frequent analysis of where your best spenders are coming. So your most costly online channels might be where you're getting your guests who are very price conscious and just coming to the hotel and staying for one night, not consuming any of the other services or facilities you've got. Whereas there may be another channel that you could experimentally try, monitor to see how that goes, and find out that the guests from that particular channel are spending far more with your brand because they were more targeted and more invested. Plus the cost of that channel may be actually lower. than the more generic OTAs. So just even micro-analyzing those bits of data can help you make decisions, but you can then monitor and view those decisions almost in real time or on a weekly, monthly basis.
Mm-hmm. Nick, could I almost ask the same question to yourself in terms, as someone who's impartial and who will advise and consult, what metrics, KPIs, benchmarking, insights are you advising that hoteliers should be analysing in order to sharpen their strategies moving forwards?
Yeah, sure. I think, as I already mentioned, I think, kind of regular evaluation of ROI across all channels and market segments is super important. You do tend to hear from a lot of hoteliers, they like to also complain about OTA commission most of the time, but then, there is also cost associated with sales. And there is also cost associated with marketing. So, I think there's always going to be costs involved, across all different market segments. I mean, even if you take consortia as well, you have to actually pay to be in a lot of the programs. So, yeah, I think, that's kind of one aspect. But yeah, constant or regular evaluation of ROI. And also just to then check the performance, in terms of optimizing each segment. You can drill down further, look at the the performance of each market segment in detail, in terms of MPI, ARI, and ultimately RGI. You may also then want to go down further and look at TRevPAR as a whole per segment. Just so you can evaluate total revenue performance. So yeah, I think what is important though is you do need accurate and relevant data, because without that you won't really be able to do a full and comprehensive analysis.
Mm-hmm. On the topic of data, and we haven't really dwelled on it too much in today's conversation, but is AI. It's certainly been touched on. I think, Chris, you mentioned AI and machine learning. So maybe I'll ask you all the same question. And this is around where AI might have the biggest influence within revenue management and distribution. And where do we see it as having the biggest impact? And that could be in your own role or in the wider landscape. I thought it'd be a nice question to end on, so that we can get our thinking caps on. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on this?
I'll first say, probably a controversial thing, that I think AI is being something that's been spoken about for a long, long time, and it's almost a solution looking for problems. But what I've started to see is in hospitality, for instance, becoming less of a buzzword, and we're starting to see some really, really good uses of AI now. One of those is content. So we've seen systems that can actually understand hoteliers' need for better content and help with content writing. I know that doesn't seem like an obvious one, but I think both Natalie, Nick, and also I mentioned that content's really important. Hoteliers are generally terrible at keeping this up to date, but AI can actually really help. And multi-language too, can write quite nice content for you. I think the other areas where AI really are starting to shine for us is we've seen some great things like predictive cancellation, so helping understand what kind of customers might be likely to cancel. I think dynamic pricing is another great example of machine learning and AI, especially where AI is looking beyond just the hotel. It's looking at the whole locale and trying to help you understand what's going on in that particular area, what your competitors are doing. You can spend hours researching, and we do have hoteliers in the past that have told us they get up at 5 a.m. They'll be looking through the local news, they'll be looking through other hoteliers' websites and social media articles. But AI is now able to give you that information pretty damn quickly as well. So yeah, I think it's finding its feet, but it will be a really important step to help make decisions. Not sure how long we have to wait before it will make the decisions, but certainly help influence in decisions.
I'm a firm believer that AI would be really useful in analyzing data sets. Take your historical data sets for any given department, segment, market, whatever it might be. If you could run an AI tool to pick out key facts and maybe even forecast trends moving forwards, I mean, I'm sure revenue management is already and has been for a while using AI in this capacity. Natalie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we already all use AI on our almost day-to-day basis without sometimes even recognizing it, that we're already using it. Even being for ChatGPT, putting a text in and just rewrite it a bit that it sounds better. So all the small things actually where it makes your life easier. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated AI, because AI sounds like it's something unknown and we don't know how to use it. But with small steps, we all can use it. Like Chris just said, like for content, let them write basically your description of everything, and like obviously overread it as well. Don't put anything blindly in, but it will still help you if you don't have someone in your marketing team for that, or even put like marketing strategies in. AI can help you with that as well when it does analyze your performances year on year and sees like, okay, what can we do? It can help you at least to put you into ideas as well, how to do things, and all that kind of things. Well, I would be always as well a bit careful with AI. I'm sometimes on the more careful side with that, because I always feel the machine is amazing, or technology, but the human behind it needs to control it as well. So it is like a combination of both what we need to make use out of it. But yeah, I think most of us use it already in a day-to-day basis. We just need to make it more to use it in more levels, basically.
It can certainly improve efficiencies. For example, yeah, taking away those manual tasks and helping to not necessarily automate, but speed up that process.
Even on the website, you don't, not just OTAs content, even website content. If you would like to write us something or have a newsletter sent out to guests, you can use AI as well already in order to help you to produce something for you, basically.
And Nick, what are your thoughts on where you see AI as having a big impact within the wider distribution landscape?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, despite all the kind of scare tactic marketing out there nowadays, I think AI is not a threat, but it's instead a tool that we can all use to help us with our daily tasks. And I think if you take a look at revenue management systems as an example, some which are very well known and have been around for many, many years. Some you're talking even over 30 years. They've been around and they have been using machine learning, but they still, need the human interaction. They still need, human judgment, and they need a human to sense check it, what the system is recommending. So, I think I don't see it kind of taking over the revenue management function anytime soon, but I think as it has been used, even over the last 30 years, I think it will continue to be used in that way. But I also do think, there are also quite a lot of concerns around it, and we need to be careful what we teach it. And already nowadays, if you look at Google, you ask people, people wanting the answer for something, they just ask Google, and so many people are already relying on that. But what people also don't realize is that there's so much fake news out there, and you're not always getting a correct answer if you do ask Google. So yeah, I think there's always going to kind of be this human interaction, and I don't think it can beat human judgment and common sense. But definitely, it can be used as a tool. For example, if you want to, write some room descriptions, or, if you're looking to elaborate about your property on social media and you wanted to write, a nice paragraph, you could definitely use it for that. As Chris said, I think definitely you can use it in terms of kind of dynamic rate recommendations, and revenue management systems have been using that already. But yeah, I think the last thing is that I want to mention is that, you know, the system itself doesn't learn overnight. You do have to kind of teach it. And, you know, would I personally want to train it so that one day it could take over my job? You know, the answer is no. And I think for most people, it would be the same.
I'm a firm believer that if we all live and breathe hospitality and travel, and I don't think there's any room for maneuver when it comes to AI replacing us humans. So I will plant that flag in the sand and fly it high. Thank you to Nick, thank you to Natalie, and thank you to Chris. I can see that we are 3 minutes to go. I just want to show you some short closing slides before we finish off today. And right at the end of the webinar, we will keep it open for an extra 2 minutes to allow our audience members to follow up on any of the links that we have popped into the chat, as I know we've put a lot of content in there today. So if I can ask my team to move the slides along, thank you so much. And speaking of connectivity and looking at how hotel operations can be improved, the next webinar in the BHN series is all about Internet of Things. Would love to see you there. And if you're interested in learning more, the link to register has been popped into the chat. And our next in-person event is taking place in September, the 18th and 19th of September here in London at King's Cross. The Urban Living Festival is bringing together all the hospitality and living asset classes under one roof. And there is a whole stream dedicated to hotels, hospitality, and extended stay. So there's lots going on and there's clearly lots to learn. So if you're interested in learning more, you can click the link in the chat and tickets are now available. We'd love to see you there. And if you're interested in working with us, either across our in-person events or digital events such as this webinar, please do get in touch. My colleague Piers, his details are on your screens and also in the chat. So once again, thank you to Chris, to Natalie and Nick for your time and insights. Thank you to Guestline for helping curate this content. Enjoy the rest of your days. Really enjoyed this conversation, and I very much look forward to seeing you again at on the next BHN webinar. So take care, folks, and see you all very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Hello, we are International Hospitality Media, or IHM for short. IHM is the #1 brand to engage with decision makers in hospitality and real estate. Our 4 multimedia brands lead their respective sectors with breaking news, comments, trends and opinion across a variety of multimedia solutions. We provide an inspirational community to connect people through world-class events, webinars, podcasts, award schemes and much more. But let us share our story of who we are and what we do. Over 10 years ago, Piers and George had a light bulb moment to provide expert opinion, comments and low-cost digital content. And so they went on a journey over the past decade, creating media platforms to serve the hospitality and real estate industries. We now have an engaged audience with a reach of over 60,000 monthly visitors across our website, 48,000 of our email database across all the sectors, and over 67,000 across our social channels. Everything we do believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. We make things simple and very easy to work with us. And we're a friendly bunch too. We offer creative solutions to help you achieve your business goals. Read, watch, listen, meet with IHM. Contact us for a chat today. Just look at some of the brands we have worked with recently.